Good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good morning. How is everybody this morning? How's everybody doing? Have you had a good week? Hello, good morning, everybody. How's everybody been? Good morning, good morning. All righty. So, as you and way more of you pop on by the minute, go ahead and type into the chat anything you'd like to be coached around today. Good evening to my on the other side of the worlders. My background looks different today. I'm house sitting, so you might hear a dog, but he's tiny and old. He shouldn't bother us too much. But yeah, I'm house sitting, so I have a different background. All right, so type in anything you'd like to be coached around. That's super exciting, Lisa, that you had an amazing networking experience. Okay, my dire financial situation. I'm not getting out of it. Hold on. Okay, anybody else want to give you all the chance to type in? Anybody else? Okay, so I am, okay, perfect. So I'm going to pull up Joe. So Joe, I'm going to promote you to panelist. Just accept it and you'll pop on here with me. Hello.
My camera wasn't on and my mute is on.
There you are. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good. Very good. Finally finding my self-expression and putting myself forward to talk about stuff. So that's an improvement.
Good. That's amazing. Well, let's do some coaching around all of these. Somebody in the chat was like, freaking sales. I know, but it's one of these things when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of got to just do. All righty. So have you seen the hot seat before?
Yes, I saw it last week.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So you kind of know how this goes. So if this was the best 45 minutes together, what would be the most important thing to talk about?
So I would like to look at like the wobbles I have, maybe dive into why, maybe reframe it and think how I can improve. So just to say up front, this is like the first enrollment call I've had in many years. I've been putting it off and off. And actually it was after your money paradigm shift that something shifted. So I actually went for it and I actually made the offer. But, or I should say, and there was a little wobble. And I then didn't say anything when she said, oh, I need to think about it. And I thought, that's great. I've actually had the call and I can get better. So I'm here to get even better.
Perfect. Amazing. So what would you say are the thoughts and emotions that come up when you kind of have that wobble around doing the enrollment call?
It was as I was telling her the price, when I'd briefly talked about an investment, I didn't mention a price. She said, well, you can send something to me. And I thought, no, don't back away from it. Actually, speak it. And then when I did, my voice went a little bit. So what came up? So there was a little bit of self-doubt, like a bit of an imposter confidence. Yeah.
Okay. So what would you love to have at the end of this call today?
Zero doubts and full certainty, or when I next walk into an enrollment call, that I have no doubts about myself, because I am absolutely sure that, that little wobble in some way came across to them, even if it was unconscious. And I would like their decision to be based purely on whether they think I can help them, rather than any like unconscious tells from me.
Perfect. All righty. So what is your definition of sales?
I don't think I have a healthy thought about sales, to be fair. When someone said sales is sexy, it's like, wow, okay, I've never seen it as that. What is my definition? Offering someone something that they may or may not need. I would hope that by the time I make an offer, I am actually aware that they do need it. Whether I've put across to them that they do need it, is another issue.
Mm-hmm. And what is your definition of money?
Something that's temporary, something that comes and goes. Yeah, your paradigm shift was really powerful, actually. Until then, I didn't realize that I had used money as a way to get and receive love, to get and give love.
Mm.
So previously, it's been very transactional, as a way to demonstrate my feelings without the use of emotions.
So it makes sense that if your definition of money is something temporary, it comes and it goes, and it's usually very transactional, very emotional, that if someone may or may not need this thing, that you're not going to really want that money. It's totally normal. It's all good.
And it's also whether I deserve that money. Yeah. Yeah. There is a deserving issue there as well.
So when you think about being undeserving of money, how is that a problem?
Because I either don't get it, or when I do have it, I either give it away or spend it. So and hence that perpetuates the temporariness of it.
So if you are either not getting money or you get it, but then you spend it immediately, so you still don't have the money,
Yeah.
how's that a problem?
Living in fear, not safe. Yeah. Always in lack.
So what do you believe about yourself when you're living in fear and scarcity?
Unsafe is one of my key things. And then it'll be not good enough. Uh, yeah, those two mainly.
So how specifically would you be not good enough?
In terms of this particular issue, can I help someone? what if I can't help them? What if they criticize me for not helping them? Because it's so I have two sides to my career. The other side, I'm a qualified accountant. It's very tangible. It's very certain. And it's like I absolutely know I'm amazing at that. But like the coaching side is very woolly and it's very dependent on each session. And it's like, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So when you think about being undeserving, unsafe, and incapable, what are your negative emotions?
Fear, panic, disappointed. Let me get my emotion wheel to help me.
Perfect. It's on a pillow. How convenient.
Yeah. Somewhat lonely, actually. Scared, anxious, insecure, embarrassed as well. Yeah.
So when you believe that you are undeserving, not safe, incapable, and you have fear and panic and shame, how, if at all, is that affecting your ability to make sales?
I just go into freeze. I go into avoidance. I will distract, procrastinate. Hence what I've been doing until I actually got on a call yesterday.
Mhm. Where else in your life are you freezing, avoiding, distracting, and procrastinating?
Going to the gym or doing exercise. I was doing that in writing, but I'm getting myself in a better place for that. And last night's call, there was 8 people, so we've made an accountability group, so that will help. And then probably in actually sitting down and completing certifications. I realized that was a big issue, so I've made a conscious effort about that in the first few months of this year, and I've progressed really well on that. So I don't see that as much of an issue now.
So when you think about keeping the promises that you've made to yourself, right? Saying that you're going to go to the gym, saying you're going to complete this certification, saying you're going to make these sales and have this business. So when you think about making these promises to yourself and then not keeping them, how's that a problem?
I just don't get what I want. I don't progress forward. I don't feel happy with myself. I feel disappointed with myself. And I'm not living the life that I could.
So if you were living the life that you could be living and you got what you wanted and you were moving forward, what are you afraid of?
If I was doing all that,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't be afraid of anything.
Okay. So if you were to get what you want, you were moving forward, you were living the life that you could be, you're living the life that you want. What's stopping you from doing that?
Fears. And
So then
stupid
what are you
beliefs about myself.
so then what are you afraid of?
Messing up, being criticized, not being good enough or loved.
And if you were to mess up and be criticized and you weren't good enough, what are you afraid of?
Being abandoned.
So when you think about being abandoned, what are your negative emotions?
Loss, grief, unsafe, unprotected, unwanted. Just not what I want.
I'm going to push pause on this right now. We're going to come back to these limiting decisions, okay?
Yeah.
Because your definition of money is something temporary, it comes and goes. You used to get it, you used it to get love, to have love, and it's transactional. So
Yeah.
when you think about your definition of money being that, what are your negative thoughts and emotions?
Sadness. Loss and grief for the money that's gone. Although some of it I had really good fun spending. Disappointed with myself, guilt. Um, Scared that nothing will change until the paradigm shift, probably confusion about why it was happening. Anxious and feeling insecure and inferior.
If you were to never make any sales or any money in your business, what would happen?
I would go back to the other side of my career, um, as an accountant, as a fixer, troubleshooter. It's well paid, it's the head, it's logical, but it doesn't fulfill me. It's not my passion or my purpose.
Great. So if you were to have to go back to being an accountant and not do your passion or your purpose, how is that a problem?
I feel unfulfilled. The money's great, and I have a almost a more healthy relationship with money on that side. I wouldn't be fulfilled. I would be bored. I would be restless. Um, after a while, I am never fully engaged with the job or my task because of it. I might be good at something, but if my heart's not in it, then Yeah.
Okay. So if you're unfulfilled, bored, restless, not engaged when you're back to being an accountant, what would you take it to mean about yourself that you're the reason you had to go back to doing this because you couldn't make money and you couldn't do sales?
Yeah, trapped. That I'm like being forced to do it, like I have no other option, and I hate feeling controlled, even if it's through my own circumstances.
Yeah. So if you're trapped and controlled, what are you afraid of?
Not having freedom.
And if you weren't to have freedom, how is
Sorry,
that a problem?
if I can just add as well, because self-expression has made more sense to me since joining Genius Unlocked. Uh, it also includes not having self-expression.
Perfect. So if you were to not have freedom or self-expression, what are you afraid of?
Might as well be dead. What's the point?
So what's your definition of freedom?
Living my passion, my purpose, living how I choose, free from other people who want to control me, um, having choices and feeling happy.
And what's your definition of self-expression?
I might need a bit of help with this because until a few weeks ago I didn't really get it.
That's
um,
okay.
self-expression, it's about having confidence in my own words, thoughts, ideas, being able to say them, act them, and just be who I am.
So I said I was going to take us back to those limiting decisions. So when you think about being abandoned, unsafe, unprotected, and unwanted, also bring in trapped and controlled. So when was the first time you felt abandoned, unprotected, trapped, controlled, and unwanted?
My birth.
So a short summary, what happened during then that made you believe that about yourself?
So they didn't know until I was actually born, but I was born with spina bifida. So I have part of my spine missing. And I was taken away from my mother. And I needed a big operation from inside my ass cheeks to my waist to correct it. I didn't physically bond with my parents because I was in an incubator for 3 months. So I think as a child, I felt abandoned. I found out later my mum had a hard time, but I just felt all of those things. So unprotected, unsafe, controlled. The only touch I knew was being prodded and poked by doctors.
So that was a really interesting word that you used right there. You said torture, the only torture you knew.
No, the only touch I no, it wasn't
Touch.
touch. Yeah.
That was my
That's
filter.
right.
Whoa. I was like, wow. Okay,
It may have
then.
felt like torture to this tiny little baby. I mean, I was only, 5 pounds. Can you imagine doing that level of operation? What skill?
Touch.
Touch. Yes,
My bad.
as I like.
So, because you didn't bond with your parents because you were in an incubator for 3 months, you had to have this massive surgery immediately after birth. There was technically, right, medically something wrong.
Yeah.
So, because all of that happened during that time, what did you take that to mean about yourself?
That I was defective, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't loved, that I wasn't safe, that I was disconnected. I only wanted to talk about a wobble during a sales call.
Welcome to coaching,
I know.
root cause coaching.
Yeah.
So, what did you need during this time that you didn't get?
I needed touch, connection, love, care. I mean, it would be very hard to, I guess, verbalize anything to a baby. Reassurance.
What else?
I needed to know that everything was going to be okay, that I was okay. And I don't just mean medically.
So, because you needed touch and connection and love and care and reassurance, and to know that everything was going to be okay and that you were going to be okay. And might I add, maybe some safety, because you
I would
needed
never
all
say
of
that.
that,
Yeah.
because you needed all of that and didn't get it. What qualities and characteristics of yourself did you suppress?
Um, the open, connected side. I was quite isolated. In some respects, I still am. I suppressed vulnerability. I suppressed self-expression. Um, asking for my needs. And I suppressed caring for myself.
So, when you say you suppressed your self expression, what about that did you suppress? What are the qualities and characteristics of yourself that you haven't been able to express?
Um, a word came up during some coaching with Lara, and it was about my brilliance, and it felt like my brilliance had been stuffed down, so I was never able to express that, or when I did, it was like pushed back down even harder. I suppressed saying what I wanted and needed. I suppressed having boundaries. And then sometimes I couldn't suppress it and all just came out. So it was either one or the other. There was never a happy medium.
Perfect. So when you can have openness and connection and vulnerability, and you can really have your self-expression, that confidence in your own words, thoughts, and ideas, and you're just able to say them and act on them and to just be who you want to be. You can ask for your needs, and you know that you're caring for yourself, and you have this brilliance and this balance in your life. When you know you have all of that, what are your positive thoughts and emotions?
That's freedom right there. That's comfortable in my own skin. It's confident about my place in the world.
So when you have that freedom and you know that you're comfortable in your skin, you're confident of your place in the world, you're open and connected, and you have this vulnerability and this self-expression, and you ask for your needs, and you're caring for yourself, and you're brilliant, and you have this balance, and you're living your passion and purpose, and you're living how you're choosing to be, and you're confident in your own words, thoughts, and ideas, and you're able to say them and act on them and to just be who you are. When you know all of that, you are all of that, you have all of that. Can you have zero doubts about yourself and have full certainty that your next enrollment call that you are fully confident?
Yes. There are zero doubts.
And then when you can have that and you know all of that, what can be different about the next time you make an enrollment call?
I don't worry about saying the price. I don't worry about whether they do or don't. I know I can help anyone. And if they choose to get help, great. If they choose not to get help, great.
And when you know all of this about yourself, that open and connected and vulnerable and self-expression, and you ask for your needs and you care for yourself, and you're brilliant and you have balance and you have freedom and you're comfortable in your own skin, you're confident of your place in the world, you have full certainty in yourself, you're confident, what can be your new definition of sales?
I'm not quite going to go as far as sexy, but I will go to it's an opportunity to explore whether whether a potential client and myself connect and there is an alignment to work together, and it's nothing to do with money.
Beautiful. And when you know all of these things about yourself, you believe them, you have this amazing new definition of sales. What can your new definition of money be?
A nice bonus for living my purpose.
Perfect.
It's a thank you for helping someone. It's good energy. It's no longer like negative.
I love it. I love it. So when you know all of this, you have all of this, you are all of this, do you believe that you can get what you want, move forward, and live the life you want to live?
Yeah, 100%.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So is there anything else you'd like to talk about today in order to feel whole and complete?
No, I'd just like to thank you.
Of course, you're so welcome. You did great. That was awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting. It was just about that wobble during the call. I didn't realize there was all this below it, but then root cause coaching.
Yes, root cause coaching. Your presenting problem is never what you actually think it's going to be.
No, clearly. No.
Alrighty. So I want to open it up for any questions in the chat, comments, observations. Everybody was giving you love.
I can read that. Thank you.
Any questions? Why did I put a pause on the limiting decisions? Perfect. So there's this wonderful, amazing thing in coaching that I like to do. And it's very similar to like hypnosis, where you can bring them down and you can get to like here. And then you bring them back up. And then the next time you bring them down, you get them deeper. And then you bring them up, and the next time you get them deeper. So what I was doing is I wanted to put pause on those limiting decisions. One, because we got there really quick. We got there in like 15 minutes. If I only did a 15-minute coaching call, you guys would be very sad. So I had got her down, and Joe, you're totally free from everything we're talking about now. You're just kind of like watching in your like bliss and excitement. I got her down to a place where she was really associated, right? Her voice wavered. She had tears in her eyes. So I used my sensory acuity, and I was like, okay, great. I've kind of struck a chord somewhere. So I've gotten her to this depth. Well, then I was like, okay, but I want to get her deeper because it hasn't been very long. There's something underneath this. So I brought her back up, and I was like, okay, what's your definition of this? What's your definition of this? Oh, and I brought her totally unrelated to where we had started or to where we had gotten. So then I brought her down again, and then we got to trapped and controlled. And then I brought her up again. I was like, oh, what's your definition of freedom? What's your definition of self-expression? I brought her back up. And then I was like, great, when was the first time you felt all of these bad things? And then she went, whoop, all the way down to that first event, the root cause. And then she cried. She was very associated. And she was able to get down to the root cause of not loved, which hadn't come up before. So then I was able to then build up the other side, make everything happy, and everything was great. So that is why I paused on those limiting decisions, because I wanted to bring her up to take her deeper, bring her up to take her even deeper. And depending on how long your coaching sessions are, you can do that. I did it 3 times in 30 minutes. You can do it more than that if you're coaching for longer, or less than that if you're coaching for shorter. So it's a thing to practice. And it's just to have an awareness of where your client's at.
Really interesting to hear that explanation. Thank you.
Of course it is. I got a lot of crazy things going on in my brain at all times.
I could tell.
Oh yeah, lots of practice, but you guys will get there. Okay. Oh no, Lisa, can you hear us?
A lot of people haven't been able to hear me very well, I don't think.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could hear you totally fine. So, So is that emotion wheel pillow homemade? That's funny, Deb.
From there is a lady, I can't remember her name. Yeah.
Look at that. It's perfect. would I be open to walking you through from the beginning? Absolutely, I can take you guys through that. So, I didn't bring my normal notebook. I panicked like 3 minutes before the call started. I was like, oh my gosh, my notebook is at home. I thought I brought everything. So I found like a random piece of paper here. So my notes are a little bit messier than normal. So I have 2 pages. So I can absolutely take you through. You're not necessarily going to be able to read what I wrote, but I can point things out as I talk. Okay. Okay. I feel like I'm like reading a story to my class. I'm like, look, I'm pointing to the pictures and the words. Okay. So up here, this little section right here, this is her presenting problem. Okay. So this was like that wobble in her voice during the enrollment call. What I did was, for those of you that have already gone through Activate, for those of you that haven't gone through this yet, you're going to learn this soon, I promise. And for those of you that have gone through this, remember when we practice taking them off of the presenting problem, whether that's getting them to learn something new about it, getting them to realize that there's other thoughts and emotions other than the presenting problem. So that's what I started with. So this little arrow right here is, okay, great. The wobble was specifically around telling them a price, the investment. And then I went into, okay, I got emotions, self-doubt, imposter, not confident. Cool. So we kind of got her off of that. So then I'm like, okay, great. These things can cross contextualize. Should I go that route? Okay. I jumped around a lot in this call. Then this section right here, this is what she said she wanted. Okay. So no doubt in herself, full certainty that her next enrollment call, she's fully confident, all of that. Okay. So that's this. Then I went into definition. So I have definition of sales, definition of money. These are her new definition of sales and money. I ran out of room. So sales and money. So this is her new stuff, but her old definitions when we first started are right here. Sales, money, boom, boom. Is this backwards for you guys? Are the words flipped or can you read them? You can read them. Okay, cool. Sales and money. Then I was like, okay, great. Where do I go from here? So I started I just threw 1 or 2 questions out there. As a coach, I was so fine with being wrong. I was like, oh, how does it apply to this? She's like, well, actually, it's undeserving. And I was like, cool. Because whether you're right or wrong as a coach, you're still getting an answer. You're still gathering information that's going to lead you in the best direction to support your client. So it's okay to be wrong as a coach because you're still getting what you need. Okay. So just because the question I'd asked, which I'm really forgetting right now, I forgot what I asked. I still got undeserving. So I went to undeserving, and then I use arrows when I do how is that a problem. So I'm like, undeserving, how is that a problem? I don't get it, or I get it and then I spend it. How is that a problem? Not good enough. And then I asked her, how specifically is she not good enough? And she's like, she basically said incapable. So that's where I went in parentheses right there. I put incapable and then criticized. Okay. Excuse my messy handwriting. Okay. So then I took all of that and then I asked her negative emotions. I did that because I had gotten a lot of thoughts there. So I wanted emotion. So then that's where I got like fear, panic, disappointed, lonely, anxious, which I want to clear this up for everybody. Anxious is not an emotion. Anxiety is fear of the future, but that's okay. We'll talk about that during the 4 days of coaching and Activate on why it's not an emotion. But I still wrote it down. Insecure and shame, because she said embarrassment, which embarrassed is shame, right? That's the emotion behind embarrassment. Then I had asked her another question and she read my mind and gave me what she did, right? She gave me her behavior. So now I have thought, emotion, behavior. Okay. Freeze, avoid, distract, procrastinate. I use arrows to connect my work, if that's not been clear. Okay, so then great. So then I was like, okay, where else in your life are you doing these behaviors? So now I'm taking it into cross contextualizing over different areas, right? Because now I'm like, there's no way you can tell me that this is only happening, all of this is only happening in one area of your life. You're silly. It's somewhere else. So then she listed going to the gym / exercise, completing her certifications. Okay. So I was like, great, that's two different areas, right? So in my brain, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be around health. This is probably going to be around like that self-expression, personal development, right? Like what you do for yourself. So I was like, okay, great. That's two different areas of life. Then I had asked when she does these things, how it affects this. And then I got, don't get what I want. I don't move forward and I'm not living the life I could be living. So then I was like, cool. Those are some great things that I'm going to coach you around. And I wanted to know there's a reason she doesn't have these right now. So what is she afraid of? And she goes, nothing. And I was like, okay. So then what's stopping you from having these? She goes, fears. I was like, I don't even think you realized you did that. I try really hard not to. Like sometimes you just unconsciously say things and I want to laugh just because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's right there. But I try not to laugh during coaching sessions. And I was like, what are you afraid of? Nothing. What's stopping you? Fears. And I was like, well, that's okay. So then I was like, great. What are you afraid of? So I asked the question again and then it clicked and she's like, oh, got it. I'm afraid of. And so messing up, criticize, not being good enough. Great. How is that a problem? Or what are you afraid? I might have asked, what are you afraid of again? Being abandoned, lost, grief, unsafe, unprotected, unwanted. I was like, whoa, great. This is when she started to tear up, right? This is when she got really associated with these words. And I was like, cool. And then we were only 20-ish minutes into the coaching session. And I was like, I can't. I was like, you guys are going to be like, there's more. I knew there was more here. This is when I started to take her down. So, yes, these are limiting decisions, right? Abandoned, unsafe, unprotected, unwanted. And I was like, well, I want to start connecting things back to her presenting problem. Because remember, if you're just doing the conscious coaching, right, which is the hot seat call, right, where you're just doing root cause coaching, you're not doing the releasing, you're not doing anything like that. You have to make sure you're solving their presenting problem and getting them what they want. So I was like, okay, great. I just kind of want to tie some of this back in. I was thinking, again, so okay being wrong. I was thinking that when I brought in the business stuff, like the sales and the money and things like that around the business, we might have actually gotten back to these same limiting decisions. And I was going to be like, whoa, look at me. Cool. That's so cool. But we didn't. And that's totally fine. I'm okay being wrong because what we got to was even better. So if you're trying to hold on to an outcome in coaching, stop it. Okay. So then I was like, okay, great. I'm going to bring her back up so we can get her deeper. Then I asked her, because of her definition of money, what are her negative thoughts and emotions? Okay. So sadness, guilt, and inferior were like the really big ones in there. So I was like, oh, interesting. Great. So then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like pick on her. And hypothetically, if things were to happen, what would that look like? Right. Because she said that there were fears keeping her from having the life she wanted. Well, I know if she's coming here saying, I want to make sales, the life she wants has something to do with her business being successful. That 100% is a mind read, right? I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. So I was like, great. So if you have no money and you make no sales, how's that a problem? Oh, then I have to go back to being an accountant. And then she essentially took us through how horrible it would be if she had to go back to being an accountant. I was like, great. So, right. So unfulfilled, bored, restless, not engaged. And I was like, well, if you're all of those things, how's that a problem? Oh, I'm trapped and I'm controlled. That's a problem. So I was like, interesting. How's that a problem? Oh, then I don't have freedom or self-expression and I might as well be dead. Cool. Typically, when I'm doing how's that a problem and we end with death, right? That's about as deep as I can get in how is that a problem, right? They're like, well, how's that a problem? Then there's just no point. And I'm like, okay, great. So there really probably isn't anything under there. Okay. So not having freedom, and self-expression. So I got down to I brought her down deeper. See how quickly we got deep versus before it took us almost a whole page. This time it just took us this little bit. So now I was like, great, I'm going to bring her back up so that I can get even deeper when I go to the root cause. So then what's your definition of freedom? What's your definition of self-expression? So freedom, self-expression, that's these definitions right here. Okay. Can't see. Okay. Freedom, self-expression. Then I was like, great. So I left her on this high note, and then I came in and I like smacked her with, when was the first time? And then I read her back. Abandoned, unsafe, unprotected, not wanted, trapped and controlled. Okay. Then birth. Then I just very briefly was like, okay, great. What happened there that made you believe these things? Okay, great. This happened. Because this happened, what did you take that to mean about yourself? Oh, that I was defective, not loved, not safe. Okay, great. So really defective and not loved, those are really her root causes. Not safe. You can make an argument for not safe being a root cause, and it came up a lot. So I just, in my brain, the more that like Joe coaches and things like that, not safe might just be what she goes to. It might just be like your go-to, like, oh, I'm not safe, but it's actually something deeper. Again, total mind read. So if I was releasing, obviously I would release it, right? I'm not going to like not release it. But right now, these are really these two right here are really her root causes. Okay. Then I went into getting the need, the suppressed identity. She threw in isolated randomly there. So I was like, okay, interesting. I'll just write that up there. Again, if I was releasing, I would release it. And then, so need, suppressed identity. And then I went into, oh geez, what number is that? Step 7 of root cause coaching, where it's like, what are your positive thoughts and emotions when you have all of these qualities and characteristics? Because a lot of the times some people will just like spew out all of these qualities and characteristics. And then I have like this many qualities and characteristics. And that's enough to start building the other side. This time there wasn't. Not a problem. I just asked another question to keep building. She goes, oh my gosh, that's freedom. I was like, great. So I have in here, I have self-expression and freedom, which she gave me her definitions for right here. And these were pretty positive definitions. So I was like, great. So as I'm reading her back these things, I'm also reading her back her definitions because of how positive they were and how much she loved those definitions. And then that's when I was able to tie it back to what she wanted, solving her presenting problem, redefining sales and money. And then I also, right at the end, checked that she could have what she wanted, she could move forward, and she could have the life she wants to live. And I put a nice little bow on it with that. And then I asked if she needed anything else. And then she said, no, she was good. And then I said, amazing.
I would say that unsafe isn't just something I go to. It is a genuine root cause issue that I have experienced.
Right now, yes. So yeah. Because it came up so many times, I was like, yes, obviously it's something you need to release, of course. And yeah. For the purpose of what we were coaching on, the root cause was something different, which is all good.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I hope that helped. I hope that gave you some clarity onto all the things that go on in my brain. Promise there's more. And that is kind of how I take my notes. I write down everything that the client says, so that way, if I ever need to go back, I know exactly what was happening, and all the things. So yes, that was our session today. So any other questions? A little clear down, activate. How often does the program run? I can answer that question. I will have Deborah reach out to you to give you all of that information. I will have her reach out and give you that info. Okay. So yes, that was all of today. How do you manage to have such good sensory acuity when you're writing so much? Okay, perfect. So sensory acuity is not just looking at your client, it's also listening. I am the first to say my auditory rep system is not the best. I'm very high, like AD, visual, kinesthetic. Auditory is like my last, like I do not do good with just hearing. And as a coach, when I'm writing things down, I'm listening. So I'm listening to the way that she's saying words. Did her voice crack? Did it wobble? Did it where was the emotion? And then sometimes I'm pretty good at like writing and then like glancing up. So I look and then I'm like, okay, great. So it's really practice your sensory acuity. Um, when I'm writing my coaching notes, I am heavily relying on auditory, which is silly because that's like my lowest. So it doesn't matter if auditory is your lowest representational system. You very much develop it coaching just by listening to the way that your client is responding to the questions you're asking. How do you clear the root, and what does a client do after they discover the root cause? Okay, perfect. So in root cause coaching, right, you do exactly what I just did now. You get to the root and then you build up the other side so that you've solved the presenting problem. You got them what they want. And end of story. Put a nice bow on it. Have a good day. During Activate, we teach you the quantum release process. That is really taking the conscious, the unconscious mind, integrating it so that you have the permanent, long lasting change. So, Joe, when you come to Activate and you learn all these things and then you release all of these things will be released in your unconscious mind. Right now, your conscious mind is just like, well, they're gone. Your unconscious mind is like, yeah, we'll see. So conscious coaching has an effect for a certain amount of time. And then as we take you through the integration with the unconscious mind, that's where that permanent change is coming. Now, that's not to say that everybody on the hot seat are going to immediately revert back. No, not at all. If your conscious mind believes that it's gone and you're actively working at building this muscle and you have that, Jessica's going to be really happy, but you got that grit and the mental toughness, you won't revert back because you've worked the muscle and you've worked on overcoming that unconscious block. So then the unconscious block isn't a problem. So you got to have that grit, which we talk about in Activate. And then when you learn the quantum release process, you actually release it at the unconscious level. So your conscious mind knows it's gone, your unconscious mind knows it's gone, and then boom. That is a much easier process. It's a lot quicker. And this one, it's a little bit of like working a muscle, and everybody who's been on the hot seat has had the change and the shift, and it's stayed, and it's amazing because we get to the actual root cause. We don't just like leave you at the one that's up here and you're like, it's your greater problem. And then it's like, meh, and then you go back because you're getting to your root cause, because we're building up the other side, because you go out there and you do the things after this. You go out there and you're like, yeah, this is my new definition of sales. Yeah, this is my definition of money. And then you have that growth, resilience, integrity, and tenacity. I love that, Jessica. When you have all of those things out in the real world, that's when that unconscious block kind of just is like, oh, okay, yeah. And then it just goes away on its own. So it's just a little bit longer of a process from this. Laura, can I have a little bit more? Oh, over here. Can you talk about the next steps for the next session? Do you preview or review? In the context of clearing the root topic, like the root cause. So this would just be a whole coaching session. This would probably just be like a one and done, be like, oh my gosh, okay, Joe, it's so great working with you. Bye. If she was like a recurring coaching client, I'd be like, oh, that was amazing. If it was my coaching client, I like to do the releasing just because it's fast and easy. And she could absolutely be like a recurring client of just like root cause coaching. And I see her like once a week for 6 weeks or something like that. The next session, I would start completely new. This problem has been solved. Let's pick on another one. So each root cause coaching session is a standalone session, and it's what you could do is about halfway through, if you see like a thread between them all, you could coach around like, oh, like I've noticed this common thread between these last 3 weeks of coaching. I'm curious about that. Let's coach about that this week. And I typically would just start like, okay, great. If this was the best 30 minutes, what would be the most important thing to talk about? And just start completely over, all the way over, just like that. How do we know if it's been cured? Well, we don't use the C word because we're not doctors. We don't cure people. And how do you know that it's gone? That's where that inspired action comes in. That's where the results come in. So, yes, you've cleared up the mental block. Now it's about going out there and doing the things now that you don't have that block, and then seeing and reaping the benefits of that block being gone. You'll also notice this one might be over a little bit longer of a time period, but you'll notice that you're like, wow, I'm not the same person that I was 2-3 months ago. I don't think the same way about myself or other people. I see the world differently. So there's like smaller things that you'll begin to notice over a longer period of time. And the quickest way to know that it's gone is embodying your learnings. So when you release something and you get the learnings, or you do root cause coaching, you build the other side, you go out there with your grit and you do the things and you get learnings about yourself, then they see the difference. That's great. If they don't do the inspired action after the session, totally fine, right? They're still going to notice a difference in themselves. It'll just take a little bit longer. But yeah, it's all good. Okay. So thanks everybody for being here. This was amazing, an amazing call. Thank you, Joe, so much for putting yourself out there and teaching everybody. And thanks everybody for holding that space. And I will see you all next week. And next week, I believe, when is the 10th? June 10th, we have another group paradigm shift. So I believe you all have access to that. So if you want to come do another group paradigm shift, it'll be pretty much the same as the last one. It'll be around money, just because these ones were so close. The people that couldn't come to the first one are coming to this one. So I want to keep them the same. So it's still going to be money. So if you want some money support to go through your values again and to like just do a couple releases, come to that one. It's on June 10th. It's from 10 a.m. Pacific to 3 p.m. Pacific. Please stay for the whole time if you can. We do not do recordings of them because we do them often. If you're a part of Activate, you have access to all of our quarterly group paradigm shifts. If you're not a part of Activate yet, no worries, we got you. You can reach out to customer care and be like, I want that. And then you can come to those. You should, if you're registered, you should start getting emails in the next couple days or something like that. I think we send them out like a week before or something. So got one this morning. Perfect. So they're already going out. So if you're registered or want to register, you can just email customer care and say like, am I registered? Do I have this? And we will get you all hooked up. Okay. All right, everybody. Bye. Thanks for hanging out for a couple extra minutes. You guys are all amazing. And I can't wait to see you next week. Bye, everybody. Bye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Bye, everybody.